It's Wednesday, May 20th, and it's time for your Barbados Today morning news update. There is a suggestion that government should look at the option of printing money in the short to medium term instead of cutting the wages of public servants. It's coming from economist Professor Michael Howard, who believes workers in the public service can ill afford to have their salaries reduced at this time. His comments comes on the heels of Prime Minister Mia Mottley's announcement last week that discussions had taken place at the level of the social partnership regarding the implementation of forced savings to allow government to reduce its expenditure. However, the Professor Emeritus in Economics at the University of the West Indies Kival campus tells Barbados Today, while government was between a rock and a hard place, workers would face even more hardship with a forced savings option.
My suggestion was that rather than go those routes, rather than try to cut wages and so forth, they have to print money. They have to print money for the next few months or so. This is my view, that they have to print some money and try to get back and try to, still offer welfare and that sort of thing to people as services, welfare services, because people are suffering. So my view is that the government will be to put the rules of printing money rather than the cutting wages and that sort of thing. That is my view.
Okay.
The opinion I come to, and you can mention that you have been saying it repeatedly from time to time. And at a point in the future, you would reduce the money printing as the economy starts to grow back and businesses start to recover and so forth, and taxes start to creep back up. You'll be able to reduce the printing of money as the economy gets back to normalcy.
Professor Howard explained that the COVID-19 pandemic had been hard on everyone, and workers were unsure if those forced savings would be repaid in the future.
Right now, everybody's suffering, right? There's because of the combined effect of the IMF program and the COVID thing, as well as the debt restructuring. I could understand very well why the public servants would resist what is equivalent to a pay cut at this point in time. You see, that is my view, right? I can understand why they would be resistant to it, because given that a lot of people have suffered as a result of the debt restructuring, no one knows, whether the forced savings will be paid back in the future, so there's uncertainty. So I could understand that. I can understand also too that the government finds itself in a position where it has lost $450 million in taxation, and it's still looking to sort of, reduce the deficit which it might face as a result of this COVID.
Digicel's recent decision to file for bankruptcy in Bermuda will not have a negative impact on its operations here in Barbados. The assurance from Digicel Barbados Director Ralph Busy Williams, who said the move to file for bankruptcy was made to facilitate the restructuring of debt. And he said there was no need for the estimated 150 employees at Digicel Barbados to worry right now.
It will have no effect on Barbados whatsoever. Okay. The decision was taken to file for bankruptcy in Bermuda to streamline the restructuring of the company worldwide, and it is moving very, very smoothly. Barbados, it will not be affected. We have very good staff here, and the company will continue to endeavor to deliver the best cellular service available in Barbados.
The businessman, however, did not rule out possible restructuring of Digicel Barbados in the future. He told Barbados Today the COVID-19 pandemic had affected companies across the world, and finding ways to cut costs was imperative.
There is always plans to improve the efficiency of the company as much as possible. At this stage, I can't announce any plans for any restructuring here. can, obviously. I think that's true for any business, not only Digicel, but I'm sure every other business is trying to cut costs. But on the positive side, I would have to remind you that Digicel has been extremely generous recently to help school children get their tablets and so on so they can study from home. And Digicel has also provided Wi-Fi so that people that without Wi-Fi can get Wi-Fi in their homes.
Employers in Barbados have welcomed the Caribbean Court of Justice recent ruling, which established a new approach for compensation for workers who may be unfairly dismissed. Executive Director of the Barbados Employers Confederation, Sheena Myers-Granville, said businesses in the country have been concerned for some time now over what she described as disproportionate awards given to workers by the Employment Rights Tribunal.
The BC, we were very happy to hear the results of the CCJ judgment in the Shafet versus Orlando Harris case. The reason for that is we have long been concerned with the quantum of awards being given at the level of the Employment Rights Tribunal. There are situations where the employer would have made procedural missteps, and in that situation we would have a case for unfair dismissal. However, the quantum of awards seem to disproportionately be in favor of the employee, even where there was some fault of the employee, and it might have just been a misstep in terms of procedure.
Myers-Granville said sometimes the financial awards did not bear any relevance to the tenure of the employee.
So the CCJ's judgment would have really made a difference in terms of how awards are calculated going forward. We know that the impact will be significant on the quantum of awards coming through from the Employment Rights Tribunal, and we expect that coming out of this case that we will see awards being made more in line with our expectations.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, the director of the Pan American Health Organization has warned of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on groups such as poor and indigenous people in the Americas. With more than 2 million cases and over 121,000 deaths as a result of the virus, Dr. Carissa Etienne called for improved access to effective public health measures and the strengthening of health system capacity to better serve vulnerable populations.
Protecting vulnerable groups is critical to addressing the health, social, and economic emergencies and winning the fight against COVID-19. It's necessary because we can't stop the spread of the virus if we don't focus on all those affected by it, including vulnerable population. It's also our responsibility because everyone has the right to health, to access testing, treatment, and care, regardless of who they are or where they live. First, we need to improve access to the public health measures that we know are effective, and we need to implement them aggressively, especially in areas with a higher risk of transmission.
And finally, on the international scene, healthcare giant Johnson & Johnson is to stop selling its talc-based Johnson's baby powder in the US and Canada. The firm is facing thousands of lawsuits from consumers who claim that its talc products caused their cancer. More in this Reuters TV report.
Johnson & Johnson on Tuesday said it would stop selling its talc-based baby powder in the United States and Canada as part of a broad reassessment of its consumer product portfolio prompted by the COVID-19 pandemic. J&J faces lawsuits from consumers claiming its talc products, including Johnson's baby powder, caused their cancer, but J&J said it remains confident in the product's safety. In October of last year, J&J recalled more than 30,000 bottles of baby powder in the United States after the FDA said it had found trace amounts of asbestos in samples taken from a bottle purchased online. The voluntary recall was limited to one lot of Johnson's baby powder produced and shipped in the United States in 2018, the company said at the time. In December 2019, Johnson & Johnson said that tests showed that its baby powder was free of asbestos after FDA investigations reported trace amounts of the material in the product.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.